Hey everybody, it's Cole with the Long Range Addicts podcast. Welcome. We're on a Thursday this week. Usually we do it on a Wednesday, but yesterday I was up with Alpha Munitions all day looking at all the new shiny cool things that are up there, getting all excited. They got some new stuff that they're going to be releasing, and I'm excited because we're going to help them release some of it, and we're going to talk with them next week. So we're kind of excited about what they're working on. There's a couple new cartridges that kind of really piqued my interest, and it takes a lot to pique my interest nowadays with cartridges. So they're pretty cool. But again, I appreciate everybody tuning in, watching. On the way that this COVID crap's going right now, I know everybody's kind of in lingo, and I'm thinking maybe we ought to do a few more podcasts to try and fill in. But anyway, I'm going to get started. Again, appreciate y'all.
We love shooting, hunting, and educating. So if you want to learn about long-range shooting, you're in the right place. This is the Long Range Addicts Podcast. Shooter ready, stand by.
One of the first things I need to do, of course, is thank Benchmark Barrels for sponsoring us. Coming on, helping us out. They were on the podcast last week. If you haven't, go check that podcast out. You might learn something from it. I know me and Jose did, and it was interesting. There's a lot of crap going on there that just kind of blows your mind when it comes to barrel life. But I think we're going to go down that rabbit hole a little bit more, later down the road, because it's a whole thing. I've seen a lot of stuff about it lately. But let me introduce everybody. So y'all know Jose. I kind of brought in the Team POI crew today, and I appreciate these guys for doing it. So here we go again. I need something to drink. Such short notice. Anyway, Jonathan and Fergie, introduce yourselves, boys.
So I'm Jonathan Slinsky, one of the Team POI shooters. I'm also done a couple of reviews. Just got out of the Marine Corps into September. I was the head coach of the Marine Corps rifle team at the time.
I'm Steven Ferguson. Currently on the Marine Corps shooting team, getting ready to retire here in next month or two.
And what are you going to do? We had that discussion. What the hell are you going to do with yourself? I mean, you're going to look like this, fat and bearded very soon.
That'll work.
I really want to call them both boots, but I feel like even though they're still in, they've been in longer than me. So,
how long did you spend in, Jose?
5.5 years, because I got that whole early out for budget cuts. It's kind of lame. Worked out for me.
Yeah. See, I feel left out. The Army guy over here is kind of feeling the wrath. I was in 8 years, and I was a recruiter for a couple. I don't tell a lot of people that, but
it all makes sense now.
Mm-hmm. I'm very good at telling bullshit. Anyway, so what?
It was only 8 years you were a recruiter?
No, shit, no. You can't last that long as a recruiter. Ain't happening. No, you look at recruiters, and most of them only last like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years, and then they don't hit numbers, or they're caught sleeping with one of the recruits, or one of those things we don't talk about.
It's a trap.
We won't go down that road right now. But anyway, so with what the heck have you guys been doing? I know I've actually started reloading again. After I left Barnes, I swore I would never reload again. I'd just always buy factory because I got so tired of doing it for 6 years of my life. But what the hell have you guys been doing?
So today I actually started refinishing an M1 Garand stock. I've been having the stuff to refinish it forever. So I finally got the time because of this whole shit, to actually sit down and do it. And then I would be reloading if I had a reloading setup done, which I don't. But because I'm kind of like you, I'm too lazy to do it. And I'd rather just buy good loads, not have to worry about it.
Yeah, well, you've been shooting a lot of 22 lately too. You just got you're on Team Voodoo now.
Yep.
You've been doing a lot of that stuff. You don't need to load that shit. You just figure out which one you go, and that's
exactly.
I'm just gonna go shoot 22s now,
dude. Yeah,
it's the way to go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Much more affordable that way, and a lot less reloading.
I'm looking at a box of Lapua, 4 boxes of Lapua Exact over here. Don't tell me it's cheaper than reloading.
Yeah, it's expensive.
Looking for.
It's a lot less time consuming. Let's go down that road.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I about did a video one day where I walked into my reloading room and slid my whole tray of reloaded brass out of the road and just dropped 22. Done. So much easier. So much easier than freaking reloading. But, you know, and I guess we can go down that road a little bit since we're just talking about stuff, is the understanding of when you buy 22 ammo, what you've got to go through to test each separate one out between, you know, Lapua Midas, Lapua Center X, SK, all that kind of stuff. And what have you found, Slinsky, that has been working for you to really test it and figure out what the hell you want to shoot?
Honestly, I do a lot of 10-round groups. I think the whole like 3-round group thing it's just a waste of time. Anybody can put a 3-round group that's tight and be like, oh, this is the best, whatever. It's 3 rounds. It's not like, just statistically, you need a 30% error for one shot to go off. And not part of the group. So I do almost exclusively 10-round groups. I actually put one up on the Distinguished Tactical page here this week when I got my Voodoo, comparing Ely 10X and Midas Plus, because those are the 2 I had lying around. And I did 3 10-round groups with each. I pulled them all up on Range Buddy, I think is what it's called, the app that measures groups. And so I kind of used that to get my average for each one and kind of figure out which one I was going to go with for now, till I can get enough Center or go find Center X to be able to test that one, because I haven't tested Center X through my Voodoo yet. But essentially just 10-round groups at either 50 or 100. If you can do a 100-yard indoor range, that would be ideal. I'm outdoor, so I'm not trying to mess with 100 yards because every little gust at that range is just messing with you.
Right.
But yeah, 10-round groups is honestly the biggest thing that I think is overlooked when testing 22s.
Yeah, and what are you seeing out of your Voodoo now? Like
I was
decent-
sub-minute at 100 or sub-minute at 50. But it's still kind of in its break-in period. According to the guys over at Voodoo, they were saying get a couple 100 rounds through it, and most of the barrels tend to tighten up a little bit as the lead fills in everything. And I'm still kind of in that break-in phase. So I'm still trying to figure it out and get everything worked together.
Yeah, and that's one thing is when I was with Voodoo, there was one thing that really taught me something, and that depends on the oil on the bullets too. So,
Yeah.
you know, cleaning them between to get kind of change everything back to where it was. And I guess it's kind of like seasoning a Dutch oven, right? You want to season the barrel with that oil, because every time you go out and shoot, you're like, frick, you can't touch anything. Your phone's not working, your fingerprints, you know, because that oil. And I mean, Jose and you and Courtney have been shooting. I shot an ELR match with you guys last year, and Courtney smoked us, and well, she smoked me anyway. It doesn't take much.
Well, I think Voodoos were what six of the top 7 or something like that, which we were using borrowed Voodoos, but that's kind of the whole reason that I have 2 of them sitting here now. Anyways, that's a big money hole. Worth every dime, but holy crap, that's a lot of dimes. But no, yeah, we really enjoy 22. Actually, I think this coming year, we'll see how it goes, but I think we're probably going to take 22 as serious, if not more serious, than centerfire competition. Just there's a couple of competitions that have gotten closer. I'm kind of trying to change what I do on the weekends and stuff, and I think we're probably going to chase 22 a lot, but we'll see how it goes.
It's getting more popular. The amount of matches are becoming exorbitantly higher than centerfire. Because like here in Virginia, there's nowhere long enough to have a centerfire match. The closest one will be Maryland or up in West Virginia.
Right.
There's 3 clubs that I know of within an hour of my house doing 22 matches.
Well, and what's interesting too is, you know, the whole point, you know, Cole, I guess the very first podcast since taking this over, talked a little bit about NRL 22, but the barrier to entry is just so crazy. Or like, I had a guy that I'm helping build out a couple of nicer centerfire rifles. He's never shot long range in his life. And he hasn't even, I think he just put his deposit in with Boring to build 2 rifles. And 30 minutes later, he called Voodoo and ordered a Voodoo after I talked to him about 22, because he can get his kids out there with him. Mm-hmm. And about 8 hours later, he texted me and asked me what his buddy should get for production. Like, there's no way people decide that quickly to get into centerfire. But 22, all of a sudden, it's like, oh, it's no pressure. It's cheap. I can get whatever the heck I want. It's awesome. It's a great way to get people into the precision side of things, right?
And the one thing that I really like about the 22 kind of going into this whole thing on cartridges is you don't have to compete with that like barrier to entry on not having a hot rod, hand loaded, custom built everything. Like for the last 2 years, I've been shooting a Ruger American that I bought used down in Green Top in Richmond. Doing it because the limiter is still 22 LR. Doesn't matter if you're shooting a Voodoo or an on shoots or whatever, still shooting 22 LR. So if you can't call wind, you can't call wind. If someone shows up with a crap gun but can call wind, they're going to do better than you. And so that's kind of too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what, if we're honest, the Voodoos are awesome. They kick everybody's butt. But the winning gun at that ELR match, there were 6 out of the top 7 were Voodoos, but the number one gun was RPR 22 with an aftermarket little barrel. So, and I think it was a straight power 20 SWFA scope.
Yeah. Yeah, you're almost like you sure you hit all those? Who's paying you off with that crap?
No, we watched him shoot. He was in Courtney's stick. It was wild.
Yeah, that was a whole new freaking things at ELR, and you hear it a lot. Everybody goes, "Oh, I'm gonna go build a 223 for wind." I'm like, "Do you want to learn wind? Let me show you something. Go 50 or 100 yards with a 22 and see what the hell you can read as wind." And I mean, it's going to take you a lot faster into understanding what wind's going to do. You know, when we had that discussion with Emil Praslik a while back with full value wind, quarter value wind, and understanding what that really means, because I always thought that, you know, if it's coming at a certain angle, that's quarter value, and that's not true. You know, and we learned that from Emil, which was kind of mind blowing, and it's crazy. But the 22 world is taking so much more. You know, you shoot a little target at 50 yards, you've got almost the same error that you would on a standard rifle at 800 yards, you know, and that's what's so cool about being able to train. And, you know, just going out in the woods somewhere and setting up a taint trap and a couple barricades and shooting at like 50 yards. And that's, to me, that's a huge freaking training thing for the average person. And it doesn't have to be a Voodoo. It doesn't have to be that. You know, I've seen a lot of 1022s that are shoot freaking lights out. You know, I'm building one right now, and I mean, it's a whole nother game. But yeah, the NRL 22 is kind of really taken off, and that's exciting. And, you know, props to my homie freaking the homies at NRL, and you know, they've done a extremely good job with that. It's taken off. Yeah. So I guess let's talk. What I really kind of brought all of us together for is we were going to talk about cartridge selections when it comes to shooting PRS, NRL type stuff, and doing stuff like that. Now, Jose, you've picked a 6 GT. I'm going to build a 6 GT. I've got a 6XC. I've got a couple others, but I kind of wanted to go through understanding what people need to look for when they're picking a cartridge for shooting these, because I've seen it everywhere. Like, what the hell should I pick and why? And so let's start, Jose, with why the hell did you choose 6 GT over some of the others?
Why? I think it's because I'm a glutton for punishment. No, I guess I would just want to preface this, and I think all 4 of you would agree, but frankly, we're 1,000 times better in ammo than we were 5, 7, 10 years ago across the board. Cartridges, projectile quality, from cheap projectiles to expensive projectiles, whatever. Frankly, any decent built gun, you will find ammo that works, right? So as far as cartridges, there's no, I still disagree. All the Dasher boys, right, that think that's the best it's ever going to be. Like, there's no magical wand for cartridges, right? So let's just start there.
Yeah.
And then I'll explain why I went 6 GT, right? So I went from, my progression was kind of, I don't know, odd, but I went from a 308 to a 6.5 Creedmoor, only shot a 6.5 Creedmoor for maybe 8 months, and went to a 6 BR. So went from fat and heavy to hot rod to really slow 243, right? Like, doesn't make sense. And I really enjoyed the BR. Finally passed that down to Courtney because I got a screaming deal on a BRX. Great rounds. I see why Dasher guys love Dasher. I'm just so tired of mag issues. I've used 3 different brands. I've used 4 different brands of spacer kits. I've used no spacer kits. I am so tired of mag issues. So I also didn't want to go back to 6 Creedmoor. I shoot too much and I'm too stingy, just borderline too stingy to want a sub 2000 round barrel life. I may not get more than 2000 with a 6 GT, but frankly, if you do the math, most people aren't going to hot rod a 6 Creed. They're not going to get a 110, 115 class bullet much over 3000. Your BR, you'll get a 110. I think I used to shoot a 110 at about 28, 25, and your dashers and GTs and 647s are going to fall somewhere in between. You're not winning that much if you take the same projectile across all four, right? You're not gaining that much in wind, and wind is all I care about. Elevation, like you can always predict elevation, but what we're not good at is wind, right? So I wanted something with a little bit more wind forgiveness than the BR, and I didn't want to deal with mag issues. I landed on a 6 GT. Is it the right answer? I don't know, but we're going to see how it works out.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, I guess when you're looking at these cartridges and you're kind of going down the proverbial list of what to do and what to get, you know, I guess you start looking at the facts of, is there factory ammo if I don't know how to load? What's barrel life? What is, you know, the understanding of how easy can I get brass? How easy can, you know, and Alpha's done a really good job of getting the GT brass out. And, you know, I just got some. I know, Jose, you just got some. And it's freaking damn nice brass. I mean, the quality of it's awesome. Just going up there yesterday and seeing what they've got in place for QC is, you know, being in this industry as long as I haven't seen a company quite that into QC as they are, especially a newer company that hasn't been out. But going back to it, you know, the 6.6, they're the 6 Creed. What is everybody seeing the barrel life? I really don't know. I was thinking about building one, but isn't it somewhere in that thousand rounds? What is it?
I think most people. Do you shoot Creed or have ever shot Creed? Either one of you two?
No. 6.5.
I know a few people that do, but I've got a 6 Creed at the house right now, and I haven't got anywhere close to barrel life yet.
I think most match shooters are going to start getting scared at around 15 to 1800. I don't know many people that aren't going to shoot a match with it past 1200. Most of them are going to 1500. They're going to get leery, may not shoot a national match with it. And yet what's funny is they tell you 1800's barrel life, and then most of them will keep practicing with it 2000, 2200. And a lot of them really won't notice a fall off, but I think there was too many. If I had to guess, I've never owned a 6 Creed, but just from what I can tell of the stories, it seems like some people maybe had wrecks early on, and as people started backing them off, it's probably not that much worse than a dasher because they're shooting them at dasher speeds, right? So the pressure isn't all that bad.
Right. So what are you guys, Solinsky, what are you guys shooting center fire now, or what are you guys doing?
So this season, we'll see. I haven't shot any yet this year, mainly because, again, it goes into that whole match thing. I can't find a center fire match less than 2+ hours from my house. And even those 2 ranges that have them at that 2-hour line, they only have one every couple of months. So I kind of backed off the center fire game a little bit, but I do have an order in for a benchmark 223 barrel, because that is going to be my next build. And that kind of goes into practice. I don't want to hand load because I don't have a loading setup. So I've got a buddy of mine that's going to help me hand load for match ammo, and I can use 77 grain SMKs to practice pretty much all I want. It's cheap. Goes into that reading wind thing we were talking about earlier. Keeps me off my toes. But I don't have to worry a whole lot about the barrel life because my barrel life is going to be several thousand rounds.
Yeah, especially if you just run it, you know, kind of middle of the road, not trying to stand on it and make it doing something that's not. What about you, Ferguson?
I'm shooting a 308 for my PRS gun, so I'm shooting the big, fat, slow, dumb ones. Easy to find.
Well, you know, I know how you Marine guys are. It's all right. You know, you all stick together. That's fine. Isn't that so? What does the Marine Corps shooting team even shoot?
So for PRS, they were falling on and off the wagon when it comes to PRS. They kept wanting the team to do it. While I was there, I got told when I first showed up that I would be helping stand up the PRS team. And then they told us, oh, there's no money for it, but we still want you guys to shoot it. But you're going to have to figure it out on your own. So they kept kind of going back and forth. I was able to get them to build a couple of 6.5 Creedmoors. We had some Tub 2000s that weren't getting used that were in 6.5 by 284, right?
Yeah.
And so I rechambered 2 of them in 6.5 Creedmoor. That way we could purchase match ammo for them. And then they've got a whole slew of 308s, some Remington 700s. On the bullseye side, for 1,000-yard any match, which is any caliber, any optic, they shoot the 7mm by 284 Shaheen. Those used to be in 6.5 Shaheen. They rebarreled them for 7 because they could get more barrel life out of it. So they're essentially running the same, almost identical velocities, slightly larger projectile, but they're getting a lot more barrel life out of it. And the whole reason for that was now they've only got to rebarrel it every 3 seasons versus every 2 seasons. So it's just a cost-saving thing. But those guns shot lights out, absolutely lights out.
That's the funny thing is it's not like it costs a whole lot of money to rebarrel a rifle, especially I'm sure you guys have your own specific gunsmiths that do all your work for you, don't you?
Yeah, so it wasn't more the labor, it was more the budgeting. They didn't like having to buy stuff that they didn't necessarily want to buy because it wasn't the priority. Service rifle was always the priority and probably will always be the priority. And so we're like, oh, we need 7 new barrels for these 7 mils. They get all finicky about it because, oh, well, there's another $4,000 of money that they weren't planning on spending just because they can't forecast.
Definitely not AMU budget, huh?
No.
I wish.
Those guys, they just back a semi up and say, here you go, take whatever the hell you want out of it. It's nuts what those guys can do, but I guess that, with the budgets and everything else, it's just the way it goes. But so what are you doing now, Ferguson? Are you still like traveling, shooting? I guess we can ask this. Maybe let's go down this rabbit hole. What as a Marine Corps shooting team member, like what do you guys get to do? What do you have access to? How do you even become a Marine Corps shooting team guy?
So as a Marine Corps team guy, you go out 4 times a year to division matches. So you go out to Japan for Far East. You go out to Hawaii for Pacific. You go out to it used to be Pendleton. Now it's 29 Palms to do the matches. And then now it should be going on right now except for Corona. So down in Stone Bay or North Carolina. And there's 4 different division matches where the Marine Corps shooting team comes out and teaches advanced marksmanship skills. It used to be more of the bullseye style stuff. Now it's a lot of the action style with a little bit of bullseye in there, or the precision side of the rifle and pistol. From there, the top 10% are invited to come out to Marine Corps Championships, which goes on at Marine Corps Base Quantico. From there, we will pick 2 or 3 guys to go to the action team. 3 or 4 guys to go to the precision pistol team, and then we'll pick up a handful of guys to come shoot national match with us on the precision rifle side, and we'll teach those guys how to shoot long range, any or long range service, as well as the across the course 2, 3, and 600-yard line stuff, and that is pretty much their pipeline. Yeah, the pipeline or their tryouts. So we can make sure that they are good at talking to people, they can teach, they're coachable, they're just good all-around Marines, not just some dude off the street that thinks he can shoot better than everybody else and runs his mouth and he's a hothead and whatever else. So once they get done with that, then we send them back out to their commands, and they have to put in a specific package. Like basically when you're re-enlisting, you have to do the same type of package, and from there, it has to get run through their chain of command, and later person A has to tell you you're good, person B, person C, person D, all the way up to their whole command, our whole command, and then the monitors have to okay it. And then if everybody says you're good, then you can come out to the team for 3 years. As soon as that 3 years is up, guess what? Going back out to the fleet, and you're gonna go learn how to be a Marine again and teach guys out there.
Oh, okay. So that's kind of like a good ending point, I guess, for a lot of Marines is once they get on the team, it's kind of the time to where they're like, I'm good. I've done my spill, and kind of like what Selinsky's like, no, I'm done. Bye, fleet.
Retention on the rifle team when I left was 0. It was 0% retention rate.
No, we had my messenger.
No, yeah, like 3 years ago, we had 1 guy that stayed in.
You wanted to go back. So you don't have to be like a scout sniper. You just have to be a decent shooter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Snipers can't shoot.
You have to have a willingness to understand that you're not the biggest and the best when you get there.
Yeah.
When I came to the team, I thought I knew about shooting. I thought I liked shooting a lot. I thought I was one of the best in my area. It's kind of like watching America's Got Talent or something like that, where you show up and you're the best in your town, and all your friends tell you you're really good, and then you show up to the University of Shooting, and all the best armors are there, all the best gunsmiths are there, all the best ballisticians are there, all the best shooters are there that have been there for a handful of years, and they're like, "Oh, you think you know this? No, not so much. Come here, little guy. We'll teach you."
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, and that's a funny thing. I spent a little over 6 years at Barnes in the ballistics lab. I spent the entire time in ballistics, understanding, all sorts of between Doppler radar and all this. And I walked out of there still with my head reeling because I didn't understand half of it. And it cracks me up where a lot of these typer boys come on to the computer and they're typing the shit out like they know something. You just look at them like, you have no clue, because I can even admit I don't even have half a clue what was going on half the time. And, especially when you get into military contracts and some of that stuff, some of the stuff they require, it just blows your mind. And that's one of the things that's what's kind of nice about some of these groups and forums, that, you can actually go in and learn something and you're not trying to be the know-it-all, I guess you can say. And you always try and hide that, but I don't know. What do you think, Jose?
I know every time somebody asks a question on the Facebook group and I scroll down to where I can actually see comments, there's more like 8 comments. I don't even open it. It's just, you either see good information and then somebody else repeats the same good information and you're like, this is absolutely not productive, or you see bad information and it's so bad you don't even want to get mad typing up a correct response and you just move on.
But second focal
second focal plane wins every time, dude.
And that's why American Rifle Series was created, right?
I don't know though. I mean,
shit everywhere.
And what's interesting though, I mean, this is kind of maybe an out on the edge perspective, but those questions come up because I think the sport seems to be growing better than we can keep up with fostering good growth, if that makes sense. Right. And we're in this age of instant information where bad information can get spread faster than good information. So it's an interesting dilemma to be in, right? Because we want to grow and we don't want to be jerks to those guys that are asking sincere questions. But then sometimes people ask questions and you're like, I don't want to be on the shooting range with you. And so it's kind of hard to balance that out.
Well, and I think the biggest thing that you ask somebody is, it's like, quit going on Facebook because it's easy just to type out a question. It's like, go in and learn something before you go start spewing your shit. It's like, okay, I want to learn what the hell is second focal plane, so I'm going to go type it into a group, when you could just Google it real quick and figure it out, and there's a lot of that, to where it kind of gets annoying. It's like people are just getting too lazy to try and figure it out on their own of where to go or how to research anything. So I guess let's ask this. Where do you guys go for most of your information? So if you're looking for something and, with the knowledge that you guys have, where do you go?
So one of the advantages that we've had being on the shooting team is we kind of get, we get a network a lot with some of the guys in industry. And so I've pretty much got a list of guys that I can reach out to and kind of seek the knowledge if I can't find it myself. I'll do what you said. I'll Google it sometimes. I've got Brian Litz's complete stack of books, and they'll get cracked open every now and then. Actually, his first book was almost not quite required reading for new guys showing up on the shooting team, because the best part of his first book is the first whole chapter pretty much explains why the Marine Corps selected the wrong rifle for our sniper rifle. It's great. So I kind of reach out to a lot of the guys in the shooting community just directly. I've reached out to Emil before with questions. I reach out to Brian every now and then with questions. They're all really great and easygoing to get back to you. They don't mind being asked the questions if I can't find it myself, though. But I always ask it after having done the research, because I can't – if you just go asking dumb questions to those types of guys and they know you haven't done the research, or even if you post on Facebook groups, you're going to get kind of ridiculous responses if you get any responses, because everyone knows you're not putting in the effort.
Yeah, I concur. One of the things that I'll do is I'll try to find out who the top of the line or the top of the whatever subject is, and I'll start researching their comments or their views on how everything works. And if they have opposing comments, then I'll do that as well. Like Frank Galley and all those different guys that'll say different things, and then I'll try to understand why they're saying that and try to get into the physics of how it actually works. So I'm well educated from both sides, not just one side.
I think too, honestly, you bring up a great point there about a lot of the respected shooters, resources, whatever, what have you, have differing views. And I think what a lot of people try to take everything that's said as biblical truth and an umbrella covering of the topic. And you got to realize what those people's purposes are, right? So there's very respected people in the industry who are 100% long range hunters, right? So if you go to somebody like Extreme Outer Limits, their shooting style, their techniques, the gear they rely on, the style they rely on isn't going to be 100% applicable, or maybe even right, if I'm a guy who deer hunts once a year and shoots 20 matches a year, right? So like, you really got to put into perspective what those guys do when they form their opinions, right? Because it's all about application, or a lot of it is about application.
And you also have to watch out who they're working for or who they're reviewing sometimes, because you may get a swayed review every once in a while if they're trying to do a favor or trying to do whatever. So
I was at a course to kind of go off that. I won't go into who was running the course or whatnot, but they kept harping on a brand of scope. I was shooting with a Vortex at the time. They're like, Vortex sucks. You shouldn't go with them. Their clicks aren't as accurate. And then 2 hours later, they're getting on me and one of the other guys because I was still dialing my scope. They're like, why are you dialing? You should only hold. And I'm like, wait a second. You literally just told me I should buy the scope that you're sponsored by because the clicks are more accurate than my Vortex. And then 2 hours later, you're getting on me because the dialing in any scope isn't accurate. I should just hold everything. I'm like, so you just told me that I should keep my Vortex.
Yeah, we better not go down that freaking path. You guys have all seen that shit on the freaking books of face about dialing and freaking, yeah, we might get sued for some shit. We won't go down that road. Oh my hell, that was a freaking riot, wasn't it?
Hey,
that was retarded.
When you get done with that rabbit hole, you should start with the mills and minutes.
Oh
yeah, that one's a whole nother one. Second for holdovers. I can shoot them. I can shoot 20 targets out to 1,000 in 10 seconds, and right. Mm-hmm. Well, I've been bouncing around quite a bit. Let's bounce back to the caliber choice, because that's kind of what I wanted to focus on tonight. And we can go down this road a little bit more, depending on whether we want to get into hunting or some of the other stuff that we're going to try and do. But in your guys' opinion, now I'm asking you guys because I have my set opinion, because I've shot 260 for a few years now, and now I'm going to go to a 6 just because it's the cool thing to do. But in your guys' opinion, what is the best cartridge that you could choose for shooting PRS or NRL, and why?
Zelinsky.
Yeah, that's a hard question. So I think a lot of it comes down to how much practice you want to do. Because, like, personally, if you're talking just all around best for every aspect, I'll be that guy and say 6.5 Creedmoor. Mainly because I can go to Walmart and I can buy ammo for it. I don't have to spend 6 hours loading everything. If something happens and I'm a day away from a match and they change the course fire and I need 40 more rounds, I don't have to worry about, oh shit, I'm not at home with my reloading setup and I don't have enough ammo to shoot the match. I can train with it fairly easily and readily. It doesn't burn out too quickly, and it does cut wind enough compared to like your 308s and your 223s, depending on your loads, that I'm getting the advantage of kind of a hot rod caliber. It's not, but kind of, where I get the advantage of a little bit flatter trajectory, a little bit more cut into the wind. But I'm not having to get a new barrel every 2 months or just not train with my gun because I can't afford it.
Steven?
I don't know. I'm still a big fan of the 308, man. I mean, the tactical class is, for me, it's just a good place to start. If you're just getting into it, it's dime a dozen for ammo anywhere. It's like 22 if you don't want to load. You can go out and buy, 10 boxes, figure out which one shoots good, and then just hang on to that one. You don't ever have to worry about barrel life ever going out because it's the slowest, dumbest round out there. But it's going to teach you a lot more about trajectory and wind and getting your everything that goes into finding where your bullet's going to hit. And once you get good at that caliber, then you can switch to whichever one you want, and it's not really going to matter anymore.
I'm going to take that question as face value because y'all just proved the point about application, right? So yes, 6.5 Creedmoor because you kind of given up. You get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. 308 because you learn everything. If the question is best, just straight up best, there's no caveats. There's no I lack money. There's no I lack time. There's no I'm not a good reloader and don't know how to check my throat every 400 rounds. I think the answer becomes pretty much a tie between 6.47 and 6 Creedmoor, right? And why is that? Because the PRS, a lot of ranges are 3,200 feet per second max. And now a lot of them, even like I've been going to a lot of matches lately that have a 3,000 feet per second max, but I've seen some 3,150 a lot, right? Well, so if I can take, let's say a 112, what's a 112 match burner has what, a 6.3 or 0.63 something G1 or a DTAC, so a 115 DTAC or a match burner, and push it at the speed limit. What other bullet in any other cartridge can you push at the PRS speed limit that has a better BC and also doesn't have the recoil, right? Because you could probably get there in like what, a 147 Creedmoor, and that's what I shot for about 8 months. And then the first time I switched to a BR and I saw my own muzzle, my own bullet wake go through my scope, I was like, holy crap, right? So if you just take face value best, then I don't see you push a 112 to a 115 at 3,150 with a Creedmoor or something like a, what is it now, 6 SRP? Isn't that something that kind of took off for a little while and didn't, something Creedmoor 647, 112s to 115s at 3,150, 4 PRS. To me, that's a pretty simple best answer. But the problem is, just like we talked about, that's not really the best answer because what if I'm new, right? Because at least with a 6 Creedmoor, if I show up to a match and I forgot my ammo, I can go over to Dick's Sporting Goods and pick up Hornady 108s and they're going to shoot, right? Very similar to your 6.5 Creed. But that doesn't mean that it's the best, right? Maybe I shoot 18 matches a year and I do want, 2,500 instead of 1,800 barrel life, or maybe I'm just not that good a reloader because what's the one good thing about the BR variants? You don't have to chase your throat like you do on a 6 Creed. You can literally shoot a BR the same depth from round 50 to round 4,000, right? So that best question is really freaking hard.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to see what your guys' thoughts were. I mean, all around, of course, when you're starting, I would recommend, I kind of want to go down Selinsky's path of the 6.5 Creed just because it's so freaking easy to get everything. And the biggest thing that I'm going to look at going down that path is the guns that I can buy. So I can buy a Ruger. I can buy, there's a lot of guns out there that I can just buy off the shelf if I don't have a lot of money. And I can go out there and I can compete. If I put a Ruger RPR in the hands of a Pinch or a Vibert or one of those guys, do you think they'd probably win a match? Probably. They still could, with the knowledge and the everything that they've got. But there's always that step up. You've got the MPA PMR Pros now. You've got the new, what is it? The GA Precision. What do they call that?
Isn't it a Pinnacle or something like that?
Pinnacle. I mean,
something like that.
Dude, with the availability of some of these builds, you almost have no excuses to go out there and be competitive, except for you not practicing enough, which is my problem of getting good at something. I go out there and I look like I've been shooting for a day because I haven't shot in a year and a half because of everything else. But coming back to it, I mean, here we go again. The availability of ammo, the availability of a gun that is relatively inexpensive, that you can still spend, you can take that, you can spend that money on an optic, a decent optic, to get you going and kind of build into that. And then maybe down the road, you've got this set up and you can sell it. Or with the 6.5, if you want to train, you can go to Ferguson's idea and go to a 308, chamber it in 308 and then build you a whole new gun off of that. And you can go down that rabbit hole. But, going from 260 forever. I tried to find the best freaking recoil management system I could find, the best brakes, the best everything, because it's not a whole lot more than a 6.5 Creed, but it is a little bit. And, not very many people shot it. So it was easy for me to police my brass after I got done shooting, but there's just so many variables in it. And that's kind of why I wanted to have your guys' best opinion of best cartridge. But I mean, we can go down that rabbit hole. So Ferguson, why did you choose the 6 Creed on this new gun that you just built?
Just out of the sheer speed and the lightweight recoil and the availability for ammo. So those are the big 3 reasons.
Yeah, and I mean, it looks like Bryce put a comment on here that he's had a couple, and he said his first barrel he ran at 3150, 900 rounds. Second barrel 3050, got 1700 rounds. Third barrel 3030, got 1700 rounds and still going. So it looks like he took 100 feet per second off of it, and he almost doubled his barrel life, which is pretty impressive, just by taking 100 feet per second. And I mean, what are you going to lose with 100 feet per second, right? I mean, are you going to lose
a little bit more trajectory, but honestly, your wind calls aren't going to be any different, really. It's not going to be enough of an effect.
Right. And I keep seeing this from a lot of shooters where they think they have to stand on a freaking bullet. And then all it does over time is it's going to add more freaking issues, whether it's overpressuring, getting a bolt issue, whether it's, trying to shove something down a barrel that shouldn't be shoved down a barrel, throat erosion, everything else. And it's amazing where you just take it off. Everybody was like, well, you need to push that 260 about 200 feet per second faster. And it's like, why? You've got more recoil, you've got everything else, and I know where it's shooting. So why do I need to stand on it? I just need to figure out where it shoots decent, and then I'm going to just start shooting. And I don't know what in the 6 class, what are the top 3 right now? Like what? 6 Dasher, 6 Creed, 6 GT? Is that what it is?
Definitely Dasher and Creed. Now, whether you argue 4.7 or GT, honestly, before the GT came out, I actually saw the BR making a big time comeback because people were only actually losing about, like, everybody's like, oh, well, a BRX or a Bra or a Dasher can go 3,000 with a 105. Most people were shooting them at 2875, 2850. Well, the sweet spot with a 105 and a BR is 2800. Like, I could load the bullet backwards and it's going to shoot. And I saw a bunch of people trending back towards just a 6 BR right behind the Dasher and the Creed. And then the GT came out and I fanboyed and went to the GT too. But I think that third place is kind of hard to define, but I think it's I'd say you're pretty lock solid with a 6 Creed and a 6 Dasher for the top 2.
And I think a lot of these hot rod calibers, that's kind of what it is it is the trend. It's the new hotness. It's the new whatever. A lot of people go to it, and there may not be a huge advantage over their current setup. They just know it's different because everyone's just chasing that little bit of like, well, I don't have to be as good at calling wind if I do this. I don't have to be as close with my range estimation if there's an unknown distance range stage if I do this and it's got a flatter trajectory and I run it super fast and I do all this stuff. And they're just trying to compensate for not knowing their setup is essentially all they're doing.
Right. And I think one of the biggest things that shooters need to understand is you've got to spend more time behind the gun and more time in the reloading room, right? It's like everybody's trying to get something because they read it online. They're like, oh, if I go to this cartridge, it's going to get me, a half minute or a half mil less freaking drop, and it's going to do this and it's going to do that. And honestly, I guess you got to get it through your head that isn't everything. It's understanding what it's going to do in the wind, no matter what you're shooting. I've seen guys win matches with a 223, and they're way under freaking, power and everything else to get there, but they understand what the hell it's doing. And that's one of my problems is shit. I built, I don't know, 6 PRS guns in the last year and a half. And it's like, you're an idiot. Honestly.
You haven't shot 6 PRS matches in the last year and a half.
No. No. I mean, look at this freaking wall behind me. There's all custom rifles and it does no good. But, the biggest thing is it's get behind something and get comfortable at it. And I want to get that through people's head. It's like, trying to change, I've got a 6XC, I got a 6 GT, I got a 22 Creed, I've got all these things that I could bounce between, but the more I think about it, I'm like, why have I done this to myself? Because it does nobody any good. for you to figure this out, because going from a 22 Creed to a 6 GT, it's going to be completely different. And then I've got to relearn it all again and understand how that gun shoots, you know, how everything's going, get my trigger discipline in, make sure the triggers are at least close, a lot of that stuff. So that's it. I don't know. Everybody's trying to chase the newest, greatest thing when that isn't necessarily the answer. I don't think, in my opinion. I don't know. Maybe you guys can change my mind on that. But.
And if you look at when PRS first started coming out and becoming more and more popular, some of the best guys at all the matches were all prior F-class shooters. They're all shooting their F-class guns in 308s, way bigger than everybody else's gun. They're sitting there, they're slow transitioning between positions, and they were crushing everybody because they didn't miss. They're used to shooting at all the way back to 1,000 yards, and now you're giving them a 20-inch plate at 800, and they're kind of giggling as they're just like, all right, like, because they're familiar with their gun, they're familiar with the wind for it, and they weren't chasing anything. And those guys, it seems like kind of gone away from the sport, but when it first came out, it was all the bored F-class shooters were just destroying everybody with 308s.
Yeah, and they understood it. They knew exactly what the hell that bullet was going to do. And I think the biggest reason why a lot of them, because everybody decided they needed barricades in this, and they all got sick of shooting barricades. But
what's funny too is like consumer demand drives innovation or whatever. And I like exactly like you said, the bored F-class shooters came over to PRS, right? Well, when I started shooting, maybe 4 years ago, PRS, what did we shoot? Maybe a rooftop. Like the rooftop was super exciting. We'd shoot off of maybe a spool or a cattle gate, right?
Yep.
And it wasn't anything crazy. And then Cole, 2 years ago, everyone and their mother just started making the gamiest matches ever, to the point that people got frustrated and wouldn't show up to a match that didn't say it was 100% belly match, right? And then now we've corrected, right? I think most matches you go to are going to be 50-50 positional and prone or close to it, but we've already lost those guys that probably could have taught us a lot about ballistics and just knowing your gun and stuff like that, but you lost their interest because we went too gamey, right?
Right. Yeah, and a lot of those old boys, shit, they'd go through and measure, way brass and they went way into that stuff. And
yeah,
there's a lot more variables in wind than there ever will be in measuring brass, in my opinion.
Right.
But you know what I mean? And that's one of those things that, like anything, you can go down a freaking rabbit hole from hell. But it's been interesting to see how this shooting thing has changed. Being a match director, it's been hard because me personally, I honestly did it because of the hunting aspect of things, because I'm a hunter and I love hunting and I wanted to become better, which a lot of people do. And then, through this, it's kind of gotten away from that. And that's why in Dog Valley, I try to do it more like field style, to where you're using props around you in the natural terrain to shoot with and do different things. And I mean, as a sniper, you guys would probably use, different obstacles within the city, like shooting off a car, trying to get around different things. But for me, I don't know. It depends. The good old boys with a beer in one hand trying to shoot off the hood. I mean, the good old boy hunters, you know what I mean? Using the mirror to shoot off of in their truck. And yeah, those were the good old days. I know all three of you are like, yeah, so what, I've done that.
Yeah, I'm not saying I have it. I'm just saying we're not trying to teach anybody bad habits right now.
Shit, it may be coming up soon anyway.
Yeah, that's freaking. Oh hell, here we go. Let's go down that road. So let me go into this a little bit. Now I built a 22 Creed. I have no clue why, because it'll probably only have like a 700 round barrel life, because it's trying to shove a bullet going hella fast. And honestly, probably one of the biggest reasons why I built it, because I like to shoot coyotes. But and this is a problem I had with my match last year, is I proofed a lot of my stages with a 6.5 Creed, and the 6.5 Creed had plenty of power, spun spinners, did everything. All these guys show up with these 22 BRs and stuff, going at the speed of smell. You can't even tell if it hits a friggin' target at 1,000, 1,500 yards. You're like, shit, I need lights on those. What are your guys' impressions with the 22 guys? Because it's becoming more popular, and I know why. You're building a 20-pound gun with a 22 because there's absolutely no recoil. Yeah. But what are your guys' thoughts?
I think it's defeating the purpose. If you can't tell that you hit a hanging steel target that's usually hanging off at like literally a hanger, I can go swing it with my bare hand. If it doesn't have enough retained velocity to show a significant hit or to give a significant signature, it's not doing anything. There's no point in having a gun that does that.
Not a real good practical application for it.
So I will say that I think one reason is because have you noticed a lot of the 22 BR and 22 Creedmoor guys are running 20-inch barrels? So they can run their suppressor and still have a 26-inch, let's say, projection past their action where it's not hard to manipulate around barricades. So that's one thing, right? Because those guys can run an 88 that has the same BC as a 110 6 mil at the same speed as that 110 6 mil out of a 20-inch barrel. I can get that. I will say, though, you're exactly right. I literally had loaded my 223 for a match a while back, a local match, and saw they had a spinner and went and loaded 100 rounds out of my C6 BRX just so I wouldn't lose out on that stage. So that definitely is a sacrifice you make.
Yeah.
But it's a hard call, you know?
Yeah. Like, it's one thing coming from the bullseye side of it, because, like, I get it when all you want to do is punch paper. Like, I've seen guys do super soft loads, especially when you talk like bullseye pistol. They're for USPSA. You get guys shooting like mouse fart loads. Just all they have to do is punch cardboard. If that's the game, sure. But if you know the game is trusting another person to see the impact, I'm not erring on the side of like, yeah, maybe he'll get it. Like, I want that thing to freaking shake and rock and there's a poop comes off the side of it, because if I get that hit, I want credit for the hit. And if they're trying to just make everything as slow and quiet and short as possible because it's easier for them but makes it difficult for everybody else, they don't deserve to get the hit because they're purposefully making it hard.
Yeah, another downside to having a 22 caliber bullet is it depends on the terrain that you're shooting in as well. If you have something like tall grass or bushes behind it, you're probably not going to see where that bullet's going for your second round adjustment if you need one. If you're just that hot and that precision, of a shot each time, then cool. But you're going to get a lot of guys out there that are going to need that 6.5 or that 308 so they can see where their round is hitting, other than just pushing a little light 6 mil or a 22 out there, at 1,200 yards, and they can't understand why they're failing that stage because they can't see where their impacts are.
Yeah. I'll give you guys a laugh right now. So I remember the very first match I ever shot. It was here in Utah. We just got done building some custom rifles. They were chambered in 300 Win Mag. Schneider spun the barrels up for us. They were 28.5-inch Schneiders, custom reamers, built on an XLR chassis. They're, at the time they were the shit. I decided to shoot Mod 1s. Now, if anybody knows what the hell a Mod 1 load is, I had some people hating me after that match because when I did hit a target, there wasn't, you knew that freaking thing hit a target. I chronoed it after. I was pushing a 220 grain bullet out of a 300 Win Mag at almost 3150. And there's still people that talk about this to this day of laughing because they were like, I remember when you went and shot and those things hit the freaking target and it sounded like the clatter wheels of hell hit that freaking thing like it semi hit it. And I didn't know any better. I just was trying to shoot, but hell, going now shooting a 6 Creed, watching a trace, now I know what it looks like because I didn't know it then because there was no following trace at that point.
So me and Fergie have one for you like that. So we went to Rifles Only 3 years ago. The Marine Corps was trying to do this push into PRS, kind of half-ass. And they funded us a trip down there, but we didn't have guns. So we had 2 300 Win Mags, and we had a whole bunch of AR-10s. And so they gave us the option. And they sent out the stages for Rifles Only, and there was a stage out to 1,200. So I'm like, okay, well, we're going to do 300 Win Mag for 2 of us because I'm not trying to shoot a gas gun 308 out to 1,200 that's like never been shot past 1,000 before in bullseye. And so we show up with 300 Win Mags, and they started running behind. So they scrapped the 1,200 yard stage. And so me and Fergie are trying to shoot off of a whiskey barrel at 45 yards on paper. And they had like these tiny circles with freaking 300 Win Mag. So every time we shot, the whiskey barrel just does this.
That whole thing, it was great. Like, we didn't have any trouble finding our brass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched what year was it? It was one of the years of the Quiet Riot. And the owner of Desert Tech came out with a 338 Lapua. So he was shooting freaking Quiet Riot with a Lapua. And then he was leaving brass. And then it started getting around like he wasn't like it was like people at a whorehouse trying to follow him around to get freaking 338 brass. It was hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
And it was sucked because that year Brian Morgan put it on, and pretty much every stage was an angle. I remember because afterwards I couldn't freaking look for like a week because I was trying to shoot high angle on most all of it. But I could only imagine how bad that Lapua hurt at high angle, especially in a Desert Tech.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that had to freaking hurt. But that's the funny thing. And a lot of shooters come in, they're like, "Oh, these guys started with a lot of these cartridges." No, we all have our stories of where we started, and where we started definitely isn't where we're at now because we learned something. But I think everybody needs to kind of start at that point to understand how nice it is when you get to those cartridges that aren't going to kick your ass when you're shooting. It's funny because it's the mentality. I keep seeing it in groups and stuff, and it's funny, but I don't know. What else? Is there anything else? We've been here about an hour, and I don't know if everybody's or not, but is there anything else you guys might want to hit on, with caliber selection in mind?
No, I think we've pretty much hit everything I could think of.
Well, I know we're talking a lot about what we would do, but you got to think about other people that are trying to get into this, like the kids that are trying to get into it, or the females that were trying to get into the sports. It's it's pretty male dominated sport, and you have to have a lot of money to get into it most of the time. So I'm absolutely appreciating all the 6mm stuff that's coming out with the light recoiling and all the advancements in the brakes and everything, so that people do feel more comfortable getting into it. Now the suppressors are starting to come out a lot more, and it's not quite as scary to be in some of the squads because you have the massive brakes out there. So I can definitely appreciate the smaller, lighter recoiling rounds for that.
I guess I'll say just when people pick, I would do my research and see, right? Everybody, I think there's going to be every gunsmith's going to have done a bad job. Every bullet's going to have a train wreck in one lot. Every, blah, 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 blah. But I chased a bullet for a long time. Won't say the manufacturer, who would shoot great for 4 matches. And I'd have a match where I could not figure out what went on. Couldn't figure out what went on. And I was sticking with this bullet because of BC. And honestly, and like I said earlier, I don't give a crap about elevation. I wanted and still to this day want wind forgiveness. And then finally I got tired of chasing it. And I went to this bullet that everyone and their mother is like, go to this bullet, go to this bullet, go to this bullet. Like, this is the easy button, the easy button, the easy button. And I did it, and I found I didn't care about wind because that bullet just freaking worked. Where I put my crosshair is where it damn went. And it was probably easily a 15% loss in BC, but it's a well-made bullet, right? So a lot of people, we can talk about, you can chase speed, you can chase something crazy. If you're just getting into it, I'd trust what everybody says work and try to dig between the fad boy, everybody wants to do this right now, and what's worked for 2 or 3 years, right? Everybody knows a 6.5 Creedmoor is going to work. We can be shooting 17 Lapuas freaking 8 years from now. The 6.5 Creedmoor will still shoot PRS. You know what I mean? So my advice would be, don't get caught up, right? Okay, cool. I'm doing a 6 GT, but obviously as a reviewer, I just like to tinker with stuff. But if I was getting into it, I would really wade through the bull crap and find what works more than what gives the best advantage.
Yeah, I agree with that. When I was getting into PRS, trying to figure out what bullet to go with and what was working for the top guys, the advice that I was given by the people that I was talking to at the time, they were saying it doesn't matter what bullet you shoot. It's the guy that knows where that bullet's going to go. It's his target.
Yep.
Yeah, and I agree. I believe that 100%, that the person that spends the time behind the gun, figuring out, understanding that gun, understanding what's going to happen to 5 mile an hour wind, what's going to happen to 10 mile an hour wind, understanding, if I point my gun at a certain place, where am I going to impact type thing. And I think that is everything. And so, Jose, you don't have to say who the bad bullet company was, but who's the good bullet company?
It's the 6BR and the 105. I've never had any trouble whatsoever at all with the 105.
with a burger.
Yes, the 105 hybrid burger and any of the. I mean, I hear people love them in the Creedmoor too. Obviously, I have no idea, but any of the BR variant cartridges, they're gonna shoot. BR 30 grains of varget, 105 loaded, 20 thousandths off the land. You don't even got to do load work. That's gonna shoot. It's gonna shoot every time.
Hang on, let me get that piece of paper out real fast.
I'll say it again: 30 grains of varget, 20 thousandths off the land, 105s. It's gonna shoot every single time.
There you go. Jose said it, so it must be true. So what are you going to shoot in the What are you going to shoot in a GT?
The 112.
The match burner.
Man, I don't know. A lot of people that shot the 105s have, especially like in the bra, the BRX, even the GT, whatever. Man, a little bit better BC than a DTAC at the prices of down there with the Hornadies and the lower end prices for the consistencies of burgers and whatnot seems pretty hard to beat.
Yeah, for sure. What are you guys going to shoot? What are you putting through your 6, Fergie?
I'm just using Hornady right now. So
Are you using factory ammo?
Yeah, for now.
Is it shooting good?
Yeah, it shoots real good.
Dude, that 108 Hornady match in the 6 Creed, it makes me mad how many times I've seen under 20 ES on speed on those things. It's absolutely silly. They do a dang good job too.
Yeah, they do a real good job. Even the hunting loads, that was the first loads that I took out to break the gun in at a F-class match. Those things were absolutely hilarious, and I wound up winning one of the matches with it. So even their hunting loads shoot well out of that. So it's a very versatile round, a very versatile cartridge that, like we were saying, you can go to Walmart and pick up whatever type of ammo, and it's going to shoot pretty good. Obviously, you can maximize it to the fullest potential by finding a good load and reloading for it. But yeah, it's a lot of fun just to shoot and play around with.
There's nothing more satisfying than doing well in a match with box ammo.
Yeah.
And not hoarding your brass. Tell people they can have your brass.
Mm-hmm. That's how my 308 is with that Barnes Precision match. Like, people shoot my 308 and they're like, no freaking way, this is factory ammo. I'm like, look, I'll unseal the box, slide it out. Here you go. I'll prove you wrong. And that thing just, like, people shoot it and they're like, there's no way a 308 shoots this good. And I don't even dare shoot it because I'm like, it shoots so good that it scares the shit out of me. Because I know if I go to a match and I screw up, I know 110% it's me. So I'm like,
got to leave a little bit of coverage, huh?
Yeah, I need a freaking 25 ES and you know what I mean? I need like a 30 ES and making sure that it hits the target sometimes, so I can say that I can come up with that excuse like a lot of people do. Like, no, it was the gun. It was my optic. Something I was off a rev, whatever it was. But I mean, we can get into that whole discussion later about where factory ammo's going. Factory ammo's freaking nuts right now.
Oh, yeah, it's going to leave some bounds from where it was a decade ago.
Yeah, and especially for a lot of the prices. I mean, by the time you put your own time into it, you prep brass, you do everything. At what point do you say, all right, I'm just going to buy freaking ammo for it and go to town, and hopefully Prime and some of these other companies can get on these newer cartridges really fast and get rocking and rolling, because I'd like to see a lot of really good quality ammo for a price, that you can afford to go out and shoot the dang thing, because that's the biggest thing, is trying to find more hours in the day to do anything, and being able to do that's big. But no, I appreciate you guys coming on tonight. I think it's been a good discussion. We've got some things out of the way, and I think we've opened up some doors for some discussions later down the road. Like I said, with factory ammo, with understanding barrels. I've seen that lately about people chasing barrels, and at Barnes, I had over 1,000 barrels at any given time, and I understood chasing lands, and I'll kind of explain what I found. Now, I might not be the expert, but there was a lot of stuff that I had in there, so that can be a whole nother episode, which I'm excited about. But again, appreciate you guys. Hopefully everybody's getting rid of this damn coronavirus crap, and hopefully we can get back to shooting pretty soon. The short bus is feeling lonely right now.
That's right.
Anyway, thanks, guys. You guys have a good night, and again, thank you all for tuning in.
Yep.
Thanks, Cole.
Don't be afraid to pipe up. Send us your questions or topics and we'll cover them on the show. Thanks for listening.